Now, the next thing we want to do is find the positive or find one positive and one negative coterminal angles. So the fastest, easy way to find coterminal angles is just speed add and subtract 2 pi. Now, it's important for you to understand though, 2 pi can come in many different variations, right? Because I don't want to add and subtract a 2 pi to 5 pi over 4. What I want to do is I want to add and subtract a 2 pi that has the same denominator. So that is the same thing as plus or minus a 8 pi over 4, right? Wouldn't you agree that 8 pi over 4 is the same thing as a 2 pi? It is. So when I add and subtract a 2 pi over 4, right? So if I take let's actually write it out. So a 5 pi over 4 plus an 8 pi over 4, that's going to give me a 13 pi over 4. And when I take a 5 pi over 4 and minus a 8 pi over 4, not over 3, that is now going to give me a negative 3 pi over 4. So those are going to be my no two coterminal angles, actually my smallest two coterminal angles. All right, notice how one is positive as well as one is negative. So 13 pi over 4 and a negative 3 pi over 4. Now, what about one if you have something that is like 7 pi over 4? Or sorry, 7 pi over 3. I don't know why I'm changing up these 4s and 3s. Now, again, this can be another way that we can understand 2 pi. I don't want to add 2 pi to that, and I don't want to add an 8 pi over 4. Those don't have the same denominator as 7 pi over 3. But I could say plus or minus a 6 pi over 3. That is equal to a 2 pi. But here comes the problem. Because when I take a 7 pi over 3 and I subtract a 6 pi over 3, right? That just gives me a pi over 3. That's positive, right? So if I add a 6 pi over 3, that's going to also be positive. I need to find a positive as well as a negative coterminal angle. So what I need to do is I actually need to not add and subtract in this example. I need to actually subtract twice. So I'm going to take a pi over 3 and then minus another 6 pi over 3, which is now going to give me a negative 5 pi over 3. So the easiest way is typically to add and subtract 2 pi, but that's going to be when you have a positive or a negative angle within a revolution between 0 and 360 or 0 and 2 pi. If it's larger, then you're going to have to either add twice or subtract twice, or maybe even more than that to get to your coterminal angles to be within 0 to 2 pi. And what about if you have a negative angle? Well, again, like it's the same thing, guys. If you have something in degrees, just use degrees instead of radians. That's the same thing as plus or minus 360, right? So just take a negative 210, right? And then add a 360 degrees. So negative 210 plus 360, that is going to equal 150 degrees. And then take a negative 210 minus a 360 degrees, right? And that's going to be a negative 570 degrees. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's in degrees or radians. Typically, you want to add and subtract, but look out for angles when they are larger than when they have an extra revolution, because that does kind of change the way that we approach things.